Are we looking at a complete campaign miscalculation in Texas? James Talarico is running a really interesting campaign, and his strategy might be something that snatches defeat from the jaws of victory. Now, we all know that when we are talking about political strategy, for you to win in the general election, you need to have a motivated base. And that is one thing that Republicans have consistently done with their base. We all know that generally speaking, that the base of the Republican Party consists of uneducated white voters who are deeply driven by racism. That's not to say that every Republican is a racist, but every racist votes Republican. And Republicans as a party understand that. And in every election across the board, you've seen them lean into the culture wars and lean into pointing out the other, because they know that their largely uneducated white base is motivated by those things, and it drives them to the polls. And we have 3 election cycles in the Trump era that point to just that. One of the key success factors of the Trump campaign was his ability to turn out low propensity voters. And he did that through a combination of race wars and culture war language. He took the core playbook of the Republican Party and planted burning crosses all over it, and that got the vote out. By contrast, what we're seeing by the Talarico campaign might be a complete miscalculation of what he needs to do. If we accept the fact that the base of the Republican Party is made up of uneducated white voters who tend to skew racist, then who is the base of the Democratic Party? The Talarico campaign is operating under the assumption that the base of the Democratic Party is made up of a broad coalition of voters. A certain segment of that coalition consists of moderate, working-class white people. He's also making the assumption that he can peel off disaffected Trump voters or disaffected Republicans who don't like the policy impacts of the Trump regime. That's a big bet. And to me, it looks like a long shot, because what he's ignoring is who actually is the base of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party, no matter what all the consultants will tell you, cannot win a national election or even a statewide election without motivating their base. And regardless of what magical thinking you might be operating with, the base of the Democratic Party is made up of Black people in general and Black women in particular. And what the Talarico campaign has done through the primary up until now is completely ignore the base of the Democratic Party. When you think about the primary campaign, you had PACs coming into the race on the behalf of Talarico, painting Jasmine Crockett as some sort of radical leftist. You also had PACs coming into the campaign, putting out overtly racist messages and demonizing Jasmine Crockett. And Talarico was far more silent than he should have been. And then on election day, you had voter interference and voter suppression in Texas, in the main district that Crockett operates out of, and Talarico was silent. That was telling, because Talarico at that point was telegraphing what his general election campaign strategy was. His general election campaign strategy was to go after the group of voters that have never voted for Democrats since the passage of the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. Talarico is banking on a whites-only strategy as an attempt to gain office, and he's ignoring the base of the Democratic Party. And now his campaign might actually be realizing that, but it might be too late. He's been crisscrossing the state, but he hasn't made any meaningful inroads with Jasmine Crockett and her voter base. And he certainly hasn't shown up in some of the biggest communities in Texas to demonstrate his commitment to the Black community beyond Election Day. And that misstep and that lack of urgency on his campaign's part could be what cost him the election. The bottom line is simple. Democrats in general need to understand that the way you win elections is by having a deeply motivated base of your party. And unless and until that's solidified, you're never going to have enough of a moderate or Republican vote that you can peel off to win you an election. Talarico is playing a dangerous game, and he is well beyond the time where he needs to wake up. There are 4.5 million Black voters in Texas. That represents the base and the engine of the Democratic Party. And by ignoring them or by taking them for granted, Talarico is risking shooting himself in the foot and handing yet another winnable seat to the neo-Confederates of the Republican Party.